Alright guys, Snoopy here with another tier list. We're going to be going over all 28 lore cards in the game. We're going to primarily focus on these cards from the perspective of the base game, but we'll have some notes on the campaign and why some cards may be stronger in the campaign versus the base game. So as before, we got a tier list of S, then A, then B, then C, and then D. S being always great, first pick, look for the best of the best. A being really good, some context to be aware of, maybe they're not so good, but usually really, really strong. B being pretty good. Sometimes they really shine, but they're just solid. Nothing really drawing them back. They just have a maybe low ceiling. C, we're going to say, is really context dependent. Usually they do very little or not much, but they're just really context dependent to really shine, and may take some work to really do well. And D, we're just going to say, is not good. May hurt your game. Kind of avoid these, is what we're going to say for D. Okay. So this takes us to Ancient Holdings. This is going to be our first card here. It says this card has one resource slot on it with a rate cost of 4 keys. And you can hold one resource here. It adds to your ambitions, and you can spend it. So this is really good in the early game. You may have one city, or some leaders have no cities. And so you may only have 2 or 3 building slots or resource slots for your resources, and one's going to have 3 keys, one's going to have 1 key. And then your next resource slot, the third one, is also going to have 1 key. So having Ancient Holdings, making sure 2 resources are going to be under 3 keys, and then the other one's going to be 4 keys, very secure. That makes this a really strong card. Late game, when you have your cities built out, this isn't as relevant. And so for Ancient Holdings, I just have this as a B. It's good. It's pretty good. Early game is probably great, but as the game goes on, Ancient Holdings usually is not as relevant as some other of these cards. Next card, we got Cloud Cities, which says, let's see, you may build cities on planets outside their building slots, max 1 per planet. This costs 1 resource of the planet type. So Cloud Cities, think of it this way. On a planet with 1 building slot, I can now have a 2 building slot planet. So I could build a starport and then a city. So wherever I have a starport, I can also build a city if I can get that resource type to build a city there in the clouds. So that drawback of needing a resource, it can be pretty major, can make it tricky and difficult. But otherwise, this is a great way to double up your cities and your starports together. So this is really, really good. I have this as an A, just because that there are certain situations where that resource may be hard to get, or you don't want to spend it. So it can be tricky in the early game to use and get all of your cities out. But it is still very, very strong, and something to keep in mind of you can have a 2 slot planet with Cloud Cities, and now you can have 2 cities there. You can have 3 cities there even. But there's a lot to think about in terms of Cloud Cities and how you can maximize a city spread strategy. Okay, Impass Bond. This is from the Leaders and Lore expansion pack here. So Impass Bond, while Impasse is declared, you may tax any cities and build ships and catapult move with any starports like they're your own. But you don't take captives, and you build ships damage in systems controlled by other players. So Impasse Bond, very strong, but it only works when Empath is declared. And this can be tough. Empath is not always declared. It's the 6. If you're in a 4-player game, it could be a 7. I think this is more relevant in the campaign, just because taxing any cities, this can be free cities and building ships and catapult move. There's much more cities on the map in the campaign, so I think this is more relevant in the campaign. In the base game, it's still fine. I think this is just more of a context dependent. Perhaps it could be B, but we're just going to place it in C for now, just because it's just super context dependent to be really shine. Next, we have Empaths Vision. Well, Empath is declared, if you roll any dice, even outside battle, you may re-roll any number of them once. And then in your Prelude, you may discard this to clear Psionic Outrage. Okay, what do we think about this one? Again, this is another one that shines more in the campaign. So in the campaign, there's dice you roll for events, and you can re-roll those with Impass Vision. So I think Impass Vision is stronger in the campaign than the base game. Re-rolling raid dice, re-rolling skirmish dice, or assault dice can be useful in some contexts. For me, thinking about the base game, this Prelude ability, that's what I'm thinking about. Being able to get rid of Psionic Outrage, that could be huge. That could be really, really strong. Especially if someone does Outrage spreads and they choose Psionic. That can be really tough to get around if you're the Mystic. Still, I think this is context dependent. I don't think Impass Vision is as strong as Impass Bond. I definitely don't think it's stronger than Ancient Holdings. And so I think these two are both context dependent cards that if I get it, I'm not going to cry about it. It's not bad. It's just not necessarily helpful. Force Beams. This is a replaceability here. Guide, which you can do with any move action. So Guide says, move any number of any ships, even if they're not loyal, so not your own, from a system with a fresh, loyal starport to an adjacent system, or vice versa, ignoring move modifiers. So Force Beams lets you move your ships to an adjacent space that have a starport. Or if your ships are next to your starport, they can move them back. So with Force Beams, I can move all my ships from a system that's adjacent to my starport into it, and then use another move to catapult out. I can also suck ships in. So I can take ships from my rival, from my opponent, and take them in to my starport system and then use a fight. I can also, if someone's in my system, I can push them out as well. So let's say someone's trying to do a raid on me and they move in, but they don't have enough pips to fight. I can then use Force Beams to push them out. So Force Beams is really strong. It also ignores move modifiers. So the leader, the rebel leader, who can only move 2 ships at a time, well, guess what? Force Beams bypasses that. So Force Beams, really, really strong. I think this is an S card. It's not the best card in the game, but it's up there. It's really, really strong because it's just one move. One move action lets you do this. And you can move other player ships. That's what makes this S tier. Galactic Rifles. This is another replace action. So let's see. So Galactic Rifles. Fire Rifles, which is a battle action. So you spend a battle action, you can do Fire Rifles, which is like in a battle, choose a system and collect skirmish dice for fresh loyal ships there. Choose a defender in an adjacent system, roll the collected dice, and deal 1 hit to the defender per ship hit rolled. And you hit ships before buildings. So, like in a battle, means that you're going to collect trophies. You're going to treat this as if it's a battle, but it's not a battle. So things that modify the battle action do not apply to Fire Rifles. So the Rebel Leader, for instance, does not get 2 extra dice with this. Guild cards or other war cards that may modify your battling do not apply to Galactic Rifles. And so this lets you battle at a distance. So it's 1 system away and use skirmish dice. So that's a 50-50 chance to hit. And you can hit buildings with this. Now you have to choose with fresh ships there, but if you do enough hits, you can in theory damage buildings too with this. It's not likely, but it's possible. But things like skirmishers do not combo with this because skirmishers is talking about battling, and this is not a battle. It's like a battle, And so I think this is fine. It's good. It's just not crazy because it can't sync with some other like gatekeepers. It can't sync with skirmishers. It doesn't sync with leaders. So I think it's just fine. It's good. It's just not amazing. All right, we got gate ports here. Gate port says you may build starports on gates, max 1 per gate. When rival ships take a move into a gate you control with a fresh loyal starport, capture one agent of that rival. So here we have an interesting card. So when do you want to build on a starport? Or when do you want to build a starport on a gate? When does that even happen? Well, the reason you want to do that is because it's going to control the gate. You can then go and catapult from that gate to other gates or other planets. If you what you really want to do is you want to get a sector, so a sector of the map that not many people are in, and you get those building slots, and then now you have the gate port there. So that starport on that gate is now going to make it hard for anyone to come into your planets where your cities are. You're going to have ships there on the gate. You're now going to take an agent when they come in before they can even get to your cities. This is a strong card, but it's not always helpful. It's not always useful because everyone can access a gate. Everyone pretty easily can get to this gate, and so it can be a target for attention because people may want to get through it to get to those cities. And those valuable resource planets and those building slots. I do think it's strong. I don't know if I would pick it. Yeah, I think we'll keep it in B. But I don't think it's usually good. It's not always great. That's how I would put gate ports. I could be wrong here. In my experience, I haven't seen gate ports really carry victory or really shine. It's been useful. It's been good. But it just hasn't really elevated someone's game to a clear win just because of this one lore card. All right, gate stations. Gate stations. You may build cities on gates, max 1 per gate. A gate city type matches all cities in its cluster, and players may tax it for 1 resource of any of those cities. If it's destroyed, provoke outrage of all those city types. So this card can be a little confusing because when you see this, you think, oh, this is like a wild city. So this city in the gate is going to match all those planets in the gate, right? Possibly. If those 3 planets all have a city, then yes. But when you start off the game, usually the case is only one of those planets has a city. And then later on, there may be a second city on one of those planets. And very rarely, there'll be a city on all 3 planets in that gate. And that's in that cluster with the gate. So gate stations is basically just a way to do an extra city that the type is just going to be 1, maybe 2. And just like with gate ports, it can be a target for other players. But it can easily sync with extra cities. I do have gate stations above Cloud Cities, but not by much. These are very similar. I think Cloud Cities is stronger from a defensive perspective, but gate stations could be better in a more aggressive strategy where you're spreading out. You have a lot of different types. I can tax this to get several different resources. If people destroy it, they're going to take outrage on multiple resources now because it's multiple planet types. So I would say these 2 cards are very close in my ranking, but I would not have them in S tier. Hidden Harbors. Hidden Harbor says you always build ships fresh. When defending in battle, the attacker cannot collect raid dice if you have a fresh defending starport. This card is really, really strong. So how can you take things away from other players? Well, you do that either by stealing with guild cards or vox cards like Silver Tongues or Guild Struggle, or you do it by raiding. Well, with this, that can't happen if that you, the defender, have a starport there. So the attacker cannot collect raid dice if you have a fresh defending starport. So they can't even take the dice. Now, there are 2 building slots and 1 building slot planets. And so, depending on your setup for the base game, you may have a city with only 1 building slot. And so, it's going to be stuck basically vulnerable. But if you have a leader that only starts with a starport, or a leader that starts with no buildings, and you can just focus on starports, then no one can raid you until they destroy your fleet and then damage your starport. And even then, they may do too much damage, and now your starport's destroyed, and now they can't raid you. If you have no buildings, they can raid you regardless, so that's something to keep in mind. But Hidden Harbors is probably the best, or one of the best, lore cards in the game for that reason. And you always build ships fresh. There are situations and times where that can be life-saving, and so that is sometimes relevant. But the main point here is that this is a card that just sits there and defends you. It doesn't do much, but it doesn't need to do much. It just is protecting you. Next card we have is Keeper Solidarity. This is another card from the Leaders in Lore expansion. While Keeper is declared, rivals cannot steal guild cards from you while you have any resources of the same type. So, if I have a material cartel, and then I have a material, they can't take that. They can't take any of my guild cards. And the way material cartel works and field cartel works is you technically have them even if they're not in your resource slots. So if you have Keeper Solidarity and you declare Tycoon, or you declare Keeper, you now have all your guild cards secured, even though Tycoon may or may not be declared. And here it notes if you have both Relics and Sworn Guardians, neither can be stolen. But here the bigger deal is this makes the cartel cards super duper strong. But it's only when Keeper's declared. And that's a 5 or a 7 in a 4-player game. I think Keeper Solidarity is good. I will put it in the A tier, I think. But it's a weak one. It's great because it can sync. And you know what? It just needs to be a B because it's not always great. Because you may not get the cartel cards, and it doesn't always sync up well. Okay, so our next card is Keeper's Trust. So Keeper's Trust says, while Keeper is declared, rivals cannot steal resources from you that are the same resource as they have already. And then in your Prelude, you may discard this to clear your Relic Outrage. Like the last Keeper card we looked at, this one is context dependent, but this benefit is just not as strong because you can't control it. You can control what resources your opponents have. And so let's say they have a fuel. Well, they can steal it if they spend it. So if I know I'm trying to raid fuel and maybe take it from you, I may discard it beforehand, and now I'm ready to take fuel or psionic or whatever it may be. So this is a clear C for me. I think I'm judging this based off what I want cleared more. Do I want psionic cleared or relic cleared for Outrage? I think psionic wins every time, so I think this is just a C. It's not going to hurt you by having this. And oftentimes it may sneak up on opponents where they don't think about you having Keeper's Trust, and then when they try to steal, they realize they can't because they didn't spend it first. So this can, in some contexts, can help you, but otherwise it doesn't do much. It's more of a, I'm going to discard this to get rid of my Relic Outrage. Living Structures has 2 replacement abilities. So Nurture is a replace build action. So I can tax a loyal city with a build action. And this does work with leaders like Mystic or Fuel Drinker. When you pivot with a build action to tax, you get that bonus resource. It also has Prune, which is a repair action. So that's going to be from construction cards or administration cards or the material resource. Replace a loyal starport with a loyal city or vice versa. Both of these are crazy. Being able to swap out your starports for cities. So you could start out building a bunch of starports and then with one admin card swap them out for cities. Or vice versa. So if you need more starports, you could replace a city with a starport, start building up your ships. with like a 2 construction card, and now I can build up some ships. It's bonkers. And that's just the bottom part. The top part of taxing a little city with just your construction cards, your material can tax. This is really, really strong. I personally still have this as my top lore card in the game. Hidden Harbors is up there too. But these two are super strong. And this is also one reason why the Archivist Leader can be super duper strong if they can get both of these lore cards. Just when they use their setup ability to draw 5, pick 2, and they pick these two, it's really tough to beat them just because they get super strong abilities from their lore cards. All right, let's see. Our next one, Mirror Plating. When you defend in battle, you add 1 intercept to the attacker's roll if they rolled any number of assault dice. So when you're attacking, you can collect, mix and match your dice. But if they do any number of assault dice, it's going to be 1 intercept. And unlike other cards which may ignore intercept hits, it's going to be added, so it's not ignored. It's always going to happen. They're always going to have an intercept hit done. Now, this could encourage some players to roll more aggressively, and that could be good for them or bad for them because they already know they have the intercept hit. And so that can cause you to get more harm than maybe that would have initially happened because they were playing more conservatively instead of aggressively. But Mirror Playing, again, it's a card that does nothing because it's defending you, it's protecting you. Ideally, no one fights you with assault dice because they're too scared of this intercept hit. So now they're using worse dice. So that's the goal here with Mirror Playing. And it's a defensive card. It's doing nothing. And so it can be hard to rate these cards because it may not win you the game in an obvious way, but it could have helped you. And because it helped you, that allowed you to win the game because it was to protect you the whole time. So I have this as an A card. It's not as strong as Hidden Harbors, but it's still good. And it's still worth pursuing just because you don't need to think about it. Once you get it, it's protecting you. And people are going to not attack you perhaps as often because you're protected with this Mirror Plating. Let's see, we have Predictive Sensors next. This is from the Leaders and Lore expansion pack. When defending in battle, before the attacker collects dice, you may move any number of fresh loyal ships from adjacent systems to the battle system into it. Another defensive card here. You have to think about this as all my ships are nearby, so if someone does attack me, I can pull them in a second's notice. And if someone attacks me somewhere else nearby, I can then pull them in as a second's notice. And so it can be useful, but ideally no one's attacking you. And so this may do nothing. And so if everyone leaves you alone, you may be okay. And the best case scenario is they do attack you, you bring a bunch of ships in, you get a bunch of intercept hits against them, and their whole fleet dies. But that's the context for this, is that this is a defensive card. I have this as a B. I don't think this is as good as the last 2 defensive cards we've seen. Let's see here. But yeah, it's definitely a B tier here. Yeah, it's probably not as good as Gate Ports. I probably would do this above Agent Holdings, Galactic Rifles, but I think Gate Ports and Keeper Solidarity are probably better. We have Raider Exosuits. When attacking in battle, if there are no defending buildings, you may collect up to 1 raid die. This is not an extra die. Follow the limit of 1 die per ship. So, what is 1 raid die exactly? Well, it's a building hit 50% of the time, which in this case would be nothing. Building hits don't go to ship hits. So 50% chance of building hits just do nothing. You have a 50% chance of doing a hit to yourself. So that's also a possibility. You have a 1 in 3 chance, a 33% chance of rolling an intercept. So depending on where the battle is, that could be really brutal. And since it's where you have ships but not buildings, like could be really harmful. And then you have a 50-50 chance of getting a key. Now, one of those sides is 2 keys, but then the other 2 are just 1 key. So on average, you're getting, 0.67 keys, but you're only rolling 1 raid die. So it's a 50-50 risk on getting a key. And most of the time, that isn't going to do much. And the beginning of the game actually could do some things. You can move in and raid their starting resource, which is going to be on a 1 key slot. So that is pretty cheeky thing you could do. Late game, this is pretty weak. I don't think this is a harming your game. If you're beginning, you may be tempted to use this too much. In the right context, this could work and help you. But I think this is just super context dependent. So this is probably like the worst lore in the game, is what I would argue. It's just because of what 1 raid dice means. 1 raid dice is not that much. It's 1 in 6 chance to get 2 keys, 1 in 2 chance to get 1 key. That's just not enough for me to rate this higher. I will say the leader, Corsairs, which lets you re-roll raid dice, definitely pushes this up. If I have Corsairs and this is definitely something we could say, okay, this is definitely worth thinking about. Next, we have Railgun Arrays. When defending in battle before the attacker collects dice, they must take 1 hit in any loyal defending ship. If they must take 1 hit if any loyal defending ships are fresh. So if someone's attacking me and I have at least 1 ship that's undamaged, they're going to have to take a hit before they roll dice. And so this is, again, a defensive card. 1 damage is not much, but this could also be a psychological factor too. It really depends on who you're playing with. Some people don't care about the damage. Other people, I'm never going to attack you because I don't want to do a damage before you even roll. That's crazy. I think this is above predictive sensors. I probably have this above, top B card. I think this, again, it's a card that does nothing. It's just sitting there protecting you, and how much it protects you depends on the players you're playing with. But it's still good. It's still helpful. Repair drones. After you battle as the attacker, repair 1 loyal attacking ship. Crazy good. Really good. Doesn't do much, but what it does do is really, really strong. You can use a skirmish dice to repair your fleet. You can use assault dice knowing that I'm going to repair. You can raid knowing that, hey, I may do a lot of damage to myself, but at least I get this repair action, as long as I don't blow up my whole fleet. So repair drones is really, really good. Is it S tier? Probably not. I do have it above these city type cards though. I really like repair drones. It doesn't do much, but what it does really, really well. Next, we got Seet Torpedoes. When attacking in battle, after rolling dice, you may reroll up to 1 assault die for each fresh loyal attacking ship. This is really, really good. This is crazy with the right leader, where you can roll a lot of these assault dice. So assault dice, in contrast to raid dice, there's only 1 blank that does nothing, and then there's 1 intercept hit. Rerolling those, the odds are I'm not going to roll it again. And most of the time, I'm going to roll really, really well because 50% of the chance I do a self-hit, but then I have a 33% chance I roll 2 hits. Rerolling assault dice is really, really strong. It helps your odds and doing damage go up immensely. So I have this as an S tier card. I don't have it as high as these first 3 of Living Structures, Hidden Harbors, Force Beams, but it's up there. It's definitely better than Repair Drones and these city cards in my mind, because it gives you the ability to be aggressive and really punish players who are vulnerable or don't have starports out. You can destroy their fleet and they can't rebound very quickly because they have no starports, because you had the assault dice to do enough damage to wipe them out. Next up, we have Signal Breaker. Signal Breaker says, when attacking in battle, if all attacking ships are fresh at the start of the battle, you ignore the 1 intercept you roll. This is great for raiding. This is great for assault dice. Yeah, this is really strong. But the condition can really be problematic. if all attacking ships are fresh. Now, you control that because you are moving ships in from place to place, but if you're being attacked and then you're attacking back, this is when Signal Breaker may not come into play, just because you have to move a damaged ship out before you could activate Signal Breaker, which usually isn't going to work for you. So Signal Breaker is really good. I think this is a card. It's not as good as these city cards. It's not as good as we were playing, but it's still strong. Sprinter drives. When you move fresh loyal ships, you may move any of them one more time. Damaged ships can move with them once, but won't move one more time, and you resolve this after all catapult moves. So, let's say I'm in a starport with 3 fresh ships. They catapult out, they go past a few gates, and now I'm at a city, or at a planet. I'm going to build a city there, is my hope. Well, let's say I dropped 2 ships off at the gates. How many ships can move one more time? All of them. That's right. All 3 ships can move one more time, even the ones that dropped off at the gates. So now I have 3 ships from my starport. Now they're all in their own planet, and I can take up those building slots. Let's say I have a big fleet. I want to move into my opponent's area. Well, they have the gate blockaded. Well, I can move into the gate, use sprinter drives, move those ships one more time. Now I'm at their cities that they left undefended because they put all their ships in the gate. Sprinter drives is crazy. It shrinks the map so much, and it lets you to expand so quickly in the early game. This is definitely S tier card. It's better than Force Beams. Probably not as good as these other 2, but it's up there. These are probably the 3 best lore cards in the game of Living Structures, Hidden Harbors, Sprinter Drives. If that's all you got out of this video, great. These are the 3 best lore cards in my mind. Force Beams, Secret Torpedoes, good too. I still consider them S tier, but these are the 3 best. Survival Overrides, Martyr, which is a replacement for a move action. Destroy 1 fresh loyal ship on the map to destroy 1 ship that is not loyal in its system, and you take it as a trophy, and your loyal ship does not belong to become a trophy. This is good for Warlord. That's the main context for this. And in the context of Warlord's not declared, I can now destroy everyone's ships and rebuild my ships quickly. So this is something to do when people aren't building starports and they're just focusing on their cities, and now their last starport's destroyed, or they don't have one at all. I can now use this to kind of destroy their fleet. I can rebuild my fleet with my starports. It's context dependent. I don't think this card is amazing, but it could be useful. It's context dependent. Yeah, we'll just put this next to Raider Exosuits. These 2 cards are not that great in my mind. Tool Priest, Summon, which is a replacement build action. Once per turn, build 1 ship at any city you control. Yes, even rival cities you control. Really good, really syncs with the city spread strategy. Once per turn means that if I have 3 cities on the map, I can only build 1 ship at those 3 cities. I can't do 3 ships at the 3 cities. But still, it's really strong, really good with material. If you can tax material, use material on the material planet, build another ship there, it can go really, really well. I have this as a card. I think this is a better than Gate Stations and Cloud Cities. Yeah, I think this is probably the best A card of what we've seen. And this enables Gate Stations and Cloud Cities too as well, just because you can spread your cities out, build your ships, and you're okay. Let's see. We have a few left. Tycoon's Ambition. It has a Prelude ability which says, while Tycoon is declared, before taking any other actions, you may discard all of your material and fuel to declare exactly 1 undeclared ambition. Do not place a 0 marker. You may do this just after declaring Tycoon. So this is a good card. I think possibly more in the campaign. But even in the base game, when you're playing and people are kind of cagey on declaring ambitions, well, you can declare Tycoon and now declare another one right after that. The only issue is if Tycoon is already declared, that's getting more points than whatever you're declaring next. So in order to do this, you have to discard all your material and fuel. So it basically hurts you in Tycoon. The way around this is if you have the cartel cards. If you have material cartel, fuel cartel, you don't discard those. The supplies just stays with you. So that's when I think Tycoon's ambition goes really, really well, is if you can secure and keep those cards. And so because of that, this is a context dependent card. It's probably is better. Yeah, it's next to Impass Bond for me. It's okay. It can be really strong, but it's usually just okay. Tycoon's Charm. While Tycoon's declared, you may discard any number of material and fuel to gain 1 resource for each. In your Prelude, you may discard this to clear your material and fuel Outrage. This is really good. This is really good in the campaign when you may have a lot of Outrage because of stuff other people did, maybe stuff that you did. Getting rid of 2 Outrage slots is great. And in the base game too, that's really good. Mystic really likes this because they start with material and fuel Outrage. But the Prelude, discarding material and fuel while Tycoon's declared, yeah, I think this lets you pivot to other ambitions and lets you get Psionic and Relic. I like this a lot. I don't think this is a crazy card, but yeah, I think this is better than Ancient Holdings. It may be better than some of these other ones, but this is definitely a B tier card, Tycoon's Charm. Tyrants Authority. While Tyrant is declared, replace any city or starport you control with a loyal city or starport respectively, and cities return to player boards. This is a great card. It's a replacement for a build action, but it's context dependent. I'm sorry to say. You have to control the other player's stuff, and then you can replace it with your own. And if you replace it, then you can't get captives from it. If it's a city, you do cover up the player board, which may inhibit and stop their city bonuses. But yeah, this is just a context dependent card. Okay, our last one we have here is Tyrant's Ego. While Tyrant is declared, you may spin captives in your Prelude, returning them to secure once for each. In your Prelude, you may discard this to clear your weapon's Outrage. Getting free secure actions is really nice, but turning captives to do it is not so nice. Discarding this to get weapons Outrage removed is great. Especially in the campaign. But yeah, I think this is just another context dependent card. It's really hard to get captives in arcs. It's really a hard thing to do, and using them for secures instead of using them to win the Tyrant ambition is tough. So I think Tyrant Ego is probably next to Tyrant's Authority. And with both of these, Tyrant has to be declared to activate these. So it's just tough. I think these are just context dependent. Warlord's Cruelty. While Warlord is declared, you may tax cities you have already taxed this turn. And in Prelude, you may discard this to clear your weapons Outrage. Now this, unlike the other ambition type ones, this is crazy. Taxing multiple times, especially if I'm taxing someone else's stuff and getting multiple agents, that's crazy. This is another S tier card for me. Yes, it is context dependent. Yes, Warlord has to be declared, but man, if Warlord is declared, it's off to the races. I'm gonna win so many ambitions. I can get multiple psionics, multiple relics, multiple anything, and I can get multiple agents. This allows me to go for Tyrant, and be able to discard this for weapons Outrage. Yeah, this may be too high, just because World has to be declared to activate this. But World is often declared, and it's often declared at the end of the game, and that's when I need my lore cards to do something for me. I need my lore cards to help me win, and that's when World's often declared, and this is what's going to help me to win, by taxing cities multiple times. Last one, Warlord's Terror. While Warlord is declared, you may spend trophies in your Prelude, returning them to influence once for each. Not as good. Not as good as the previous card we looked at, but still useful. It's just, I'm getting rid of trophies that we're going to go back anyway, and it can influence for that, which could be nice. It also lets me return cities I've destroyed back earlier, but Warlord's already declared. And so they're going to go back anyway, but this happens before ambitions are scored, and so this can also be a way to prevent and subvert city bonus scoring, because you covered up their city bonus before we scored, because you did an influence action. And it's only one influence for each trophy. So yeah, I have this as a B, but it's probably the worst B we're going to look at. So this is what I got, guys. So I have 6 cards here for S tier. We have Living Structures, Hidden Harbors, Sprinter Drives, Force Beam, Secret Torpedoes, Warlord's Cruelty. This is the S tier. For A tier, we have another 6. We have Toll Priests, Repair Drones, Gate Stations, Cloud Cities, Mirror Plating, and Signal Breaker. Again, these are all good. I'm not sad to see any of these. For B tier, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards here. Railgun Arrays, Keeper Solidarity, Gate Ports, Predictive Sensors, Tycoon's Charm, Ancient Holdings, Galactic Rifles, Warlord's Terror. These cards are solid, but they're not going to shake the earth and win you the game most of the time. Maybe some context. They could help you for sure, but I don't think these are the cards you're looking for most of the time. The C's here, these cards are not going to ruin your game, but they need a lot of work to be useful. Impass Bond, Tycoon's Charm, or Tycoon's Ambition, Tyrants Authority, Tyrants Ego, Impass Vision, Keeper's Trust, Survival Overrides, Raider Exosuits. None of these cards are going to destroy your game. I don't think any of these cards are bad, but they may not do a lot for you. And if you misuse them, I would put them in the D tier, depending on how experienced you are in arcs, just because you may misuse it or misunderstand these cards. But that's all I got for you guys. I'll have a link to making your own tier list if you wish. And as always, hope you enjoy. Thanks.